The neon lights of Gangnam flickered against those same windows hours later, the skyline pulsing in shades of gold and crimson, the kind of view that makes ordinary men feel powerful and powerful men feel like gods. Inside, the air smelled of aged scotch and even more expensive arrogance. Jae-won swirled the amber liquid in his glass, watching the city below with the detached calm of a man who has already calculated its worth. At 32, he was the most dangerous kind of brilliant. The kind that had never been told no and no longer believed the word existed. His tech empire, Shim Dynamics, had reshaped the digital infrastructure of an entire nation. 3 million employees, offices in 11 countries, a face on the cover of Forbes Asia 2 years running. And yet, the only thing Jae-won Shim truly loved was the moment before a deal closed, that electric second when the other person realizes they have already lost. He collected those moments the way other men collected watches. But before we go any further, welcome to Afro-Korean Stories by V, where African soul meets Korean heart, and nothing ever goes according to plan. If you're already feeling that quiet ache, that pull of watching someone realize too late what they almost threw away, then you're exactly where you belong. Like this video and subscribe for more beautiful tales like these. Whether you're watching from New York, London, Toronto, Sydney, or anywhere the world has carried you, this channel was built for you. Some stories you watch, this one you feel. Now let's go! His oldest friend Hyun-suk sat across from him with the lazy confidence of someone who had known him long enough to be dangerous. He set his glass down and slid his phone across the table without a word. On the screen, a video. A community board meeting in Mapo-gu, the kind of unglamorous district that men like Jae-won only saw from helicopters. And standing at the front of that meeting, in a bright Ankara print blouse and dark jeans, arms folded, head tilted, was a woman systematically dismantling a city developer's entire argument in fluent Korean with the unhurried confidence of someone who had absolutely nothing to prove. She was Nigerian. Her name, Hyun-suk explained, was Adaeze Okonkwo, 29. Born in Enugu, raised between Lagos and London, currently running a community literacy program in Mapo-gu that she had built from nothing with grant money and sheer stubbornness. The locals called her Ada Sonsengnim, Teacher Ada. She was beloved in a way that could not be manufactured. Jae-won watched the video once, then again. Park Jun-ho sent her a penthouse offer, Hyun-suk said, naming the heir to South Korea's third largest conglomerate. She donated the flowers to a nursing home and never replied. Something shifted behind Jae-won's eyes. Not warmth, curiosity, the predatory kind. She's interesting, he said. Hyun-suk smiled the slow smile of a man lighting a fuse. He leaned forward, voice dropping to the register of bad ideas that sound brilliant at 2 a.m. 10 billion won, he said. 6 months. Make her fall in love with you. Make her agree to marry you. And if you can't, he paused, savoring it, you pay me 10 billion plus interest, and you admit, out loud, in front of me, that there is one thing in this world Jae-won Shim cannot buy. The penthouse was very quiet. Jae-won picked up his glass, drank, set it down. Done. He sent flowers the next morning. White peonies. His assistant had assured him women loved white peonies. The card was brief, precise, the way he wrote everything. Your work is impressive. I'd like to know you. J.W. Shim. By noon, his driver reported back. Ada had given the flowers to the elderly receptionist at her community center and gone back to her classroom without comment. Jae-won stared at this information like it was written in a language he didn't speak. He sent diamond earrings the following week. Tasteful, understated. The kind of gift that made women in his world go breathless. Ada sent them back in the original box with a handwritten note that said simply, I don't accept gifts from strangers. Thank you for your generosity. Please consider donating the value to the Mapo Children's Fund. She had even included the donation link. Jae-won sat with that note for a long time. Then, because he was Jae-won Shim and retreating was not in his vocabulary, he did something he had not done in years. He showed up himself. He walked into her after-school literacy program on a Tuesday afternoon looking exactly like what he was. A man from a different universe entirely. The community center smelled of crayon wax and ramyun. Children sat in clusters around low tables, sounding out syllables, arguing over pencils, completely indifferent to his existence. Ada sat cross-legged on a floor mat beside a small boy who was struggling through a sentence, her finger moving beneath each word with infinite patience. She looked up once, registered him the way you register furniture that has appeared in the wrong room. "Sit down or wait outside, you're breaking his focus." The boy looked up at Jae-won with wide, solemn eyes. Jae-won, a man who had once reduced a room of 40 executives to silence with a look, pulled out a tiny plastic chair and sat down. He stayed for an hour. He told himself he was observing, studying the target, running the calculation, but somewhere in that hour, a little girl climbed onto the chair next to him uninvited and showed him her drawing and asked him in very serious Korean if he thought her cat looked more like a cat or a potato. And Jae-won Shim, for the first time in longer than he could remember, laughed, genuinely, without strategy, without performance. Ada watched this from across the room, said nothing. Weeks passed. Jae-won kept returning. Not with gifts, not with grand gestures, just returning. He fixed a broken shelf in the supply room because he noticed it leaning. He sat through a neighborhood association meeting Ada chaired and listened to people argue about a drainage pipe for 45 minutes without checking his phone once. He started learning the names of her students. One evening, after the center had emptied out, Ada found him in the small kitchen attempting to wash the day's dishes. He was doing it wrong. Wrong order, wrong temperature, and he clearly knew he was doing it wrong. And he was doing it anyway. She stood in the doorway watching him for a moment. "You're washing the mugs before the plates," she said. "I'm aware." "That's not how it works." "I'm learning." She walked to the sink, took a mug from his hand, and showed him. They stood shoulder to shoulder in that small kitchen, and for the first time since this had all begun, Jae-won felt something he had no spreadsheet for. He started telling Hyun-suk less. At first he told himself it was strategy, protect the operation, control the information. But the truth he kept pressing down like a bruise he didn't want to examine, was that it was starting to feel wrong to describe Ada in the language of a transaction. She had cooked him jollof rice one afternoon when he'd stayed late. Simple, nothing fancy, served in a plastic bowl. And it was the best thing he had eaten in years, and he did not know how to explain that to Hyun-suk without the whole architecture of the bet collapsing under the weight of what it meant. Ada, for her part, had begun to lower her walls by degrees. She laughed around him now, that full, unguarded laugh that she clearly didn't hand out easily. She had told him about her mother in Lagos, about the years she'd spent in London feeling like she existed in the margins of every room, about how Seoul had become home in ways she hadn't expected and couldn't fully explain. She spoke about her students the way Jae-won had once spoken about his company, with total, consuming devotion. He had begun to understand that she was not a puzzle to be solved. She was a mirror, and he did not entirely love what he saw in it. The morning everything broke started quietly. Ada collapsed in the community center at 9 a.m. on a Thursday, not dramatically, not like the movies, just there one moment and folding the next, a gradual surrender to a body that had been running on too little sleep and too much coffee for too long. By the time Jae-won arrived at the hospital, something was happening in his chest that he had no framework for. Not guilt, not fear of losing the bet. Fear of losing her. He sat outside her ward for 6 hours. He did not make calls. He did not open his laptop. He sat in a plastic hospital chair in a Mapo-gu public hospital and stared at the floor and felt, for the first time in his adult life, completely powerless, and did not try to fix it. When she woke and saw him there, her expression was complicated. Something soft moving behind something guarded. "You didn't have to stay," she said. "I know," he said. And that was true in a way that terrified him. Hyun-suk arrived on a Sunday. Jae-won had not invited him, had not seen him in weeks, and when Hyun-suk walked into the hospital room smiling with his phone already in his hand, Jae-won felt the bottom drop out of the moment before a word was said. Ada read the bet contract in complete silence, every clause, every condition. Her face did not change, and that was somehow worse than if it had. When she finished, she set the phone down on the bedside table with the careful precision of someone managing something fragile inside themselves. She looked at Jae-won. He had no words. For the first time in his life, he had no words. "Please leave," she said. Quiet. Final. The kind of quiet that does not come back from. She was discharged 3 days later. She did not call him. He did not blame her. He called Hyun-suk instead, transferred the 10 billion that afternoon, then sat alone in his penthouse with the Seoul skyline glittering below him, looking at everything he owned, and felt nothing that resembled peace. He thought about the plastic bowl of jollof rice, the little girl's drawing, the way Ada had looked at her students like they were the whole point of everything. He picked up his phone, put it down, picked it up again. He found her at the community garden on a Saturday morning, hands in the soil, teaching a group of children how to plant something, entirely at home in her life in a way he had never been at home in his. He did not call out to her. He walked to the garden gate and stood there until she looked up. She looked at him for a long moment. The children watched with open curiosity. "I'm not here to explain myself," he said. "There's nothing to explain. What I did was what it was." He paused. I needed you to know that somewhere in the middle of it, it stopped being the bet. And I know that doesn't fix it. I know that might not mean anything to you. But I needed to say it out loud to a person who deserves the truth." Ada was quiet for a long time. "Go home, Jae-won," she said. He nodded, turned to leave. "Come back on Wednesday," she said behind him. "The drainage pipe in the back room is still broken and nobody here knows how to fix it." He stopped walking. Something moved across his face, not victory. Something quieter and more permanent than victory. He came back on Wednesday. Trust, when it has been broken cleanly, does not heal the way people in movies suggest. It does not rush, it does not perform. It grows in small, unremarkable moments. In the Wednesday afternoons and the shared meals, and the slow accumulation of a person showing up, consistently, without agenda. Jae-won Shim, who had spent his entire life engineering outcomes, learned for the first time what it felt like to simply be present without knowing the result. Ada learned, slowly, that the man who had come back was not the same man who had made the bet. People contain multitudes. Wounds and growth can exist in the same body. On a quiet evening in the community center, long after the children had gone home, she looked at him across a table covered in lesson plans and said, simply, without ceremony, "I think I'm starting to trust you again." Jae-won did not say anything clever, did not reach for the right line. He just said, "Thank you," and meant it in a way that cost him something. There is a kind of wealth that does not appear on any balance sheet. It cannot be acquired through leverage or timing or force of will. It is built slowly, in ordinary rooms, by people brave enough to change and humble enough to let someone else witness it. Jae-won Shim had 10 billion reasons to believe he had lost. And every single morning, walking into that community center in Mapo-gu, he felt like the richest man in Seoul. Some things cannot be bought. Some things can only be earned. And the ones worth earning, they change you forever. And that's Jae-won and Ada. If this story hit you somewhere real, like, subscribe, and drop a comment below. I read every single one. To you who stayed and watched till the end, thank you for watching. You keep these stories alive. The next story is already waiting for you.